James said he found the iPhone on the lawn as he was leaving the party. Afterward, we wondered what had really happened, how he had actually found it. But then, when he told us, we had no reason to not believe his story. He was walking out, he explained, completely hammered. And there it was. A pink 5C covered with dew from being out all night. "You stole somebody's phone? Not cool, James," said Haley. We were standing in our apartment's small kitchen, lit quite brightly by the early afternoon sun. And James had just come over, but in his defense, it was probably much more like morning for him. I had only been up for a couple of hours anyway. The spring semester had finished a few days ago and all the dandelions were coming out, yellow-headed and alive in the few green spots in the city. Haley's internship at the museum wasn't starting for another 2 weeks, and my work in Professor Eisel's lab was on hold until he came back from vacation, which meant we had nothing to do except talk too much, and drink too much, and sleep in too much and way too late. James lived in our apartment building, on the bottom floor. I knew him from my fiction workshop. He had gone to boarding schools and wrote a lot of stories about the sadness of being rich. He DJ'd Monday nights at the college station, playing hipper-than-thou indie rock and dub reggae. I'm making him sound a lot worse than he actually is. He always had good hair. In a plot twist that didn't surprise me at all, Haley had slept with him. I don't regret it, Ariel. All great lives feature things some would call failures, but we libertines call them the forge that tempers our personal steel. But only a couple of times. He had initiated extremely awkward hugs with me, but that hadn't evolved into anything more physical, thankfully. I didn't steal the phone. I'm not like a thief. And yet here you are, Haley said, with that phone that you didn't buy. You act like I'm breaking windows and snatching shit. Are you? No, Ariel. I'm not breaking windows and I'm not snatching shit. Thank God. I don't think we were worried, said Haley. Do you guys want to know why this phone is weird? Sure, I said. Show me. He slid the phone on and punched in the security code. Hey, how do you know the code? I didn't, he said, tapping at the screen. But this morning I just put in some random numbers and boom, it worked. What numbers? 4444. What a crappy pin, I breathed. That person's email password must be password. Maybe it is, but it's not on their phone, said James. They don't have an email set up or any apps or contacts. What do they even do with their phone then? Demanded Haley. Only make phone calls? No calls in the history, received or outgoing. So there's nothing on it? Asked Haley. Maybe it's a new phone or something. It's not a new phone. He flipped it over. The back of the phone was covered in scratches, tiny spiderweb cracks running in and out. See? Somebody had this forever. So there's nothing on it and it's got a shitty password. James and I hate to complain about your attempts to bring mystery and excitement into our lives and, our kitchen. Haley gestured at the tiny room we were all packed into. But this isn't exactly Cicada 3301. There's not nothing, he said, indignant. There's a video. You want to see? Not nothing is a double negative, I said. You would say, there isn't anything, or maybe, there's something on it, instead. Does that make sense? I hated your pedantic criticisms in workshop, Ariel, and I disliked them in real life too. People sometimes talk because they like how words sound with each other. They aren't always enthralled to the completely imaginary, class-centric, often internally contradictory rules referred to as grammar. Now, did you want to watch this? Because it's a little fucked up. Haley and I looked at each other, and she shrugged. Well, obviously we want to watch it, Haley said, right? Why wouldn't we? Right, I said. Let's do this. The video started to play. Images of the ground appeared, rocks, dirt, and leaves. The camera was shaky. Shoes appeared in and out of frame. Just the uppermost tops of shoes. They looked like Chucks. You could hear footsteps, breathing. It was obviously someone filming themselves walking. Did you already watch this? Haley was staring at the screen, her brow furrowed. Yeah, I did. Be quiet though. The walking stopped. The camera panned up and swung left, revealing a heavily forested landscape with the same path the person had previously been walking on running out into the distance. And then the camera swung to the right. There was a hill's edge there, swelling out over a precipice, overlooking a not insignificant drop-off. I recognize this, I said. Where is this? Have you guys seen this before? Me too, said Haley. It's out in Macon Park. I've gone jogging out there. Just watch, said James, his voice tense. And we did. The screen shook as whoever was holding it lowered it again. The breathing rasped. Then, there was another noise. Something that sounded like running. The camera swung up. There was a blur, a shadowy motion, some kind of noise, and then the person and the phone were moving. They went over the cliff, together. And then there was an awful noise and something far away. A weird, familiar screaming. And the screen went black. I looked at Haley, who wasn't saying a word, biting her chipped fluorescent green nails instead. And James looked up. I told you, he said. It's a little messed up. 3 hours later, we were in the woods. This is a bad idea, Haley, I murmured, walking on the path. You have bad ideas, but this one's the worst. Really, the worst? She frowned. Mosquitoes were starting to appear in the near dim. One bit me and I slapped it, leaving a long smear of bright red blood on my left forearm. Okay, maybe the worst, but don't you want to see? For sure, but I wish we had waited longer. Or asked James if he wanted to go. He had to work, she shrugged. So I ain't trying to hear that. I want to see what's happening. We kept walking down the dirt trail. Most days there were joggers or other hikers, but we hadn't seen anybody else. Everything felt static, like we were looking at a screenshot instead of real life. Do you think we'll find a body? I asked. I don't know. Do you want to? It'll be like Stand By Me. I'll be River Phoenix. She kicked a stick. Unless you want to be River Phoenix. No, I'm okay. I don't like people who die pretty and young. It makes me feel self-conscious about aging. I don't know why people romanticize youth anyways, she said. It's a temporary state. People like to think things can last forever, I said. And then, almost there. We walked ahead, towards the twist in the path where the video had been filmed. I don't know why we were going there. It was dumb and we were young. What did we think we would find? And why did we want to find anything? What did you see when we stopped the tape for a second? Right before the person holding the camera got pushed or whatever. Nothing really, I said. We were almost there, right? I know, it was just a shadow, she said. But I felt like I saw something. Is it here? Like, you know when an image gets messed up on a website? It's just a digital scramble, and then it's normal. It was like that, the glitch, before it goes normal. But I know there wasn't anything there. Here, I said. We turned the corner. We were at the little break in the park where the video had been shot. To the left, woods. To the right, the precipice. And there, standing in front of the cliff, was James. He was wearing the same clothes he had been wearing in our kitchen. Tight jeans, a black t-shirt, and black chucks. His back was to us, but I knew immediately who it was. You can recognize someone without seeing a face. In his hand, I saw a phone. He pointed at his left and then his right. I should have been screaming. I thought I would, and maybe some part of me believed I was. I looked at Haley. Her mouth was open. Veins popped out of her neck as her lips stretched wide and her eyes grew wider and larger, but no sound. Something was coming. I could feel it in the woods. Something was rushing, moving towards us. To James. I wanted to scream. I felt like I was, but I knew I wasn't. It was coming. James lowered the camera. The wind came up and went by the two of us and into him. It looked like colors and decaying images, like a pixelated drawing of a tornado. It was a cartoon. It was real. It ripped into his shoulder. I saw blood fly up and into the dead sky. He stumbled to the edge of the cliff, and then he went over. And then there was only the nothing of our screaming, suddenly audible and hysterical. Everything after that turned into slow, sick time, where events feel delayed, as if it was happening from a great distance. We ran down the path and looped down the hill, loose dirt and rocks slipping under our feet. And my chest hurt, and I remember thinking as I ran. It felt tight and full of breaths that I couldn't believe I was still taking. At the bottom of the path, we jumped into the clearing where James had just fallen. But there was no James. There was no blood. Just a space where a body should have been, and in that area, a brilliant blue iPhone. We got back to our apartment after 8, exhausted and suddenly cold in the night air. Cars were backing up at the traffic light, the city starting to sound louder, different, as the streetlights flooded the corners. I could hear music blaring from one of the cars as I unlocked the door, Haley following me in. Once we were inside, Haley put the phone on the kitchen table and walked out of the room. "Where are you?" "I need to take a shower," she said. "Don't touch the phone." Within moments, I heard the rattle of pipes and the rushing of water. I walked over to the fridge and poured a glass of the cheap American pink wine we drank too much of. It tasted like headaches. I finished a glass and then poured another. Then I pulled out my phone and I texted James. "Hey, how are you?" And then, "What happened in the park?" My phone buzzed back. A little green circle. "Who is this?" "This is Ariel. Is this James?" "Sorry, wrong number." "Is this a new phone? Did you just get this number?" "No, I had it forever, sorry." "Have a nice night." Haley came out of her room, her hair still damp almost a half hour later. I was finishing my third glass of wine. She said hey, and I said hey back, and she grabbed the wine from the fridge and walked out into the living room, and I followed her. She sat on the muted, gray couch her parents had left her when we moved in, and I sat on the floor, leaning against the cold wall. Another kid lived in the apartment next to us on whose wall I leaned. I had a semi-whatever crush on him. He worked nights at the gas station and smoked so much I could taste the cigarettes sometimes through the walls. Was he there, I thought? Would he still be up? "I looked James up on Facebook," Haley said. Her voice sounded numb. "I couldn't find his profile. His Tumblrs were gone, and so was Twitter. I texted him, and somebody sent a text back saying I had a wrong number. He's gone. He doesn't exist. We're going crazy. People just don't stop existing." "Well, he did." "You're right," I sighed. "He did." "So," she took a swig of the bottle. "Now what?" "I don't think there's really a manual for this sort of thing." "Oh, there should be." And then hesitantly, "What is this sort of thing?" "Whatever it is, it's not real. Like, this isn't happening. I don't think this is real." "It is happening, though," Haley murmured, holding the wine. "It's happening." "I've been sitting here," I started, "trying to figure out what we know, like for a fact. I thought it might help." "Did it?" "No," I laughed, and she almost did. "But this is what happened. James found the phone leaving a party. He never told us what party." "Well, we didn't ask." "I know, but on TV shows, they reconstruct these things. So he finds the phone, figures out the password." "All fours," said Haley. "Four means death in Japanese, right?" Watches the video, doesn't recognize his feet in the video, shows it to us instead of investigating, goes to work. That's crazy. James doesn't care about his barista gig, I said. But he went. He went. It was silent for a minute or two. The sounds of traffic and night slipping the window, as both of us sat, not saying anything. Finally, Haley took a swig and then, "I think I know what happened. Maybe, just wait here," she said as she walked out of the room. She came back carrying her laptop. "Did James ever tell you about the time that his school bus crashed?" she said as she sat down and started typing. "I think he did. He was like 10 and it skidded on black ice. He wrote a story about it. He seemed really freaked out about the whole situation." She opened up the laptop and passed it over. "Look." The screen was open to an archived article from a Connecticut newspaper, James' home state, about a bus crash, one fatality, a 10-year-old boy, James' hand. "What is this? Did you make this up? Haley, if you made this up, I swear to God, I didn't make it up. I searched for him forever and there was nothing, like he didn't exist. And then I found that. It just appeared in a search like it had always been there. Read it if you want, or don't. It's the story he told us, but in this one, he dies. Just like he did in the park. Yeah, just like that. What do you think happened?" "I don't know," she said, "but I think he was dead when we met him. And maybe the James we met was a glitch." "So if James was a glitch, are we? Because when I was 11, No, Ariel," she said calmly. "Stop. I don't want to hear about you almost dying when you were a kid because I almost died when I was a kid. So what does that make us?" Neither of us said anything for a moment, and finally I coughed. "Do we want to look at the phone?" "No," she said. "Not tonight. Tonight I'm just going to go to bed. Let's talk about this tomorrow, okay?" "Okay." An hour later, when I was sure she was asleep, I walked out into the kitchen. I didn't turn on the lights. The traffic signal from the visible intersection outside the apartment glowed green through the slats of the blinds. I picked up the phone and I punched in 4444. It opened. It was the same as the other. No information, no apps, no photos, and one video. I stared at it until I couldn't anymore, and I hit play. Whoever was filming was running, causing the camera to bounce up and down nauseously. They were on Sigmund Street, which is one of the major streets near me, I recognized almost immediately. I had the volume down, but I knew I wouldn't be able to hear anything. The figure ran, desperate and moving from one side of the street to the other, coming to a sudden stop as they reached the Edelston Bridge. I saw their shoes briefly, and then there was a long pause. The feet moved from one side to the other, transferring weight, tapping. And then there was something else in the frame. The screen shook, the image growing, wildly pixelated. And then the riot's color turned abruptly, mechanically black. It only took a few minutes to get to the bridge. No one was really out, since the area was mostly retail storefronts which had all been closed for at least a couple of hours at that point. My steps sounded echoey. I could see her from far away, standing motionless in the blank night. The sky was void of clouds, letting the moonlight translate everything, especially her. I didn't think she was going to move. I thought she'd be like James, but once I was almost 20 feet away, she turned. "Hey," she said. "Hi," I answered. "I'm sorry, I watched the tape." "Oh, don't worry." She waved me off. "I would have if you hadn't." "So what do we do now?" "That's easy. We tell each other how we died. You go first." "Well, okay," I said. "I was 11 and I was at school, 6th grade. I was climbing the rope. I hated the rope. Me too. Before this happened even. I got to the top and, You know, it was secured to the ceiling on that latch. Yeah. It came off the latch. I fell like 15 feet, completely fine, no injuries. Everybody told me how lucky I was, but I didn't feel lucky. I felt like something had messed up. Like you should have died. Yeah, like there was a mistake. A car drove by with a missing headlight. An urban cyclops? What about you? I was 16 in my house. I took a bottle of Prozac, she shrugged. I like the irony. Whatever, but yeah, a week later I got out of the hospital. The doctor told me it was a miracle I was alive. But I don't know. Maybe there was just a wrong line of code or something. Maybe. She didn't finish her sentence. Her screams didn't sound real as the thing broke into her. Her eyes flashing sudden vicious strange awareness as her body rose into the air. Briefly, her brown and blue New Balances twisting inches above the cement. And then she collapsed, twitching on the ground. When she landed, I was able to move, but it didn't matter. She wasn't there anymore. Just an iPhone in the middle of the street, with a series of spider hairline cracks in the case. Around noon the next day, I had made it to the living room, staring at the ceiling. My phone buzzed. I had been texting Raj, the guy Haley had been dating, only a few minutes ago. Yeah, for sure, come on over. I'm pretty bored. What's the weird thing you want to show me? I'll show you when I get there, I typed. Is it okay if I bring Haley too? Yeah, sure, bring her over, but who is she? I looked at the empty spot in the living room where there used to be a great couch. Oh wait, I typed. She isn't here right now.